Hello everyone, as I'm sure you can tell from the title of this video, I'm going to be attempting a photorealistic drawing using only an HB pencil. As you probably know by now, I am a big advocate of, you can make great art no matter what your materials are. You do not need expensive materials to create great art. So while the concept of creating a photorealistic drawing with an HB pencil is not outlandish, I did want to do it just as a challenge for myself and just to kind of show you that yes, you can do photorealism with something that school children use daily. As you can see, I am starting off this video with actually sketching out the object, which is a person, as you can tell, which, if you've been watching my videos for a long time, I don't normally film the sketching, and this video kind of reminded me why I do that. I really, right off the bat, it was not, a great drawing night, which I'm sure most of you are like, well, why are you putting out this video? But again, I think it's important to show people, the sketch really did not go well. And I did manage to somewhat save it with the shading and the constant readjustment of things. But, even if you're I'm sure lots of you look up to me and think oh, my art is great and whatever. And I'm much more advanced in my style or photorealism or whatever than you might be. But you can still, I can still, and lots of your favorite artists will still have bad drawing days. It's just what happens. Especially for me, I know, I just feel very stiff right now. I had a very long period of time where I was doing absolutely no drawing, and I feel it's definitely showing, and so I'm having to build up my arm fluidity a lot, and so doing this drawing probably wasn't the greatest choice. I mean, it was a lot of why on earth did I decide to do this? The whole thing, I just really wasn't feeling the drawing, but I did push through, obviously, because there is a video. Really wasn't feeling the drawing. I realized I probably should have decided to make the figure a bit larger, especially because I was trying super photorealism, more photorealistic than I might normally do. I know I take a lot of liberties just to kind of suit my style or visual preferences, but this I did want to be pretty accurate to the photo, which you're not going to tell for a very long time, but it is actually Lady Gaga in A Star Is Born. I know that's kind of a random thing, but I did think of this video and I had absolutely no clue who I wanted to draw. Originally, I was considering maybe Gamora or another female Avenger character, but I was kind of scrolling through photos on my phone. I have a file, an album on my phone that's just random reference pictures. For whatever reason, I've saved them, whether I just the composition, the colors, whatever, and I came across this photo and it just, it worked out. I thought it would be a good thing to kind of try this out with. It was good lighting and I thought I could do a lot with it. But yeah, so like I mentioned, you're not going to be able to tell that for a while because it was a very messy process compared to normally what I would do. But yeah, so first thing, really wasn't feeling it straight off the bat. The reason that I don't normally film sketching is because I feel it rushes me. And sketching is the one thing, sketching for a finished painting or whatever is the one thing I feel you should never rush. And for me personally, lots of the time I will draw for maybe 20 minutes and then take a break for a bit, go stretch my legs, whatever, and come back, and that's normally when you can see oh, this is a little stiff there, this needs to be readjusted or whatever. But when you're filming, you are stationary in one spot, and normally I'm not stuck there. I obviously could have taken breaks, but I was determined to film this video, and so I just went at it for hours on end or whatever, and that's just not normally how I worked. And of course, like I mentioned, I was going through this whole other thing about being very stiff from not regularly drawing a lot, so this definitely did not turn out as well as it probably should have. I don't hate it though. You definitely will be able to see kind of how I go about structuring out a photorealistic face, and so I'm gonna just kind of go into how I go about doing it, like the shading and whatnot, especially because this particular, obviously I'm using an HB pencil, you are limited in your kind of shade range. Obviously an HB pencil can get pretty dark, but it definitely does not get black, like some of the softer leaded pencils will. So one of the things that I normally do kind of with any photorealistic thing that I do is I kind of go into the darkest parts of like the reference that I'm using, or what I'm determining are the darkest parts of the image, and I block those in kind of first. So that's kind of what I did with the hair, because that was kind of the darkest area. Same with her eyebrows and her eyelashes. You know, you want to be able to see the values. That's definitely the main, like, point of doing a black and white charcoal pencil drawing. It's all about the values because you're not working with color. And so for me, that is, like I mentioned, going in pretty heavily in the darkest areas so that you get a sense of what is absolutely the darkest. If you don't do that, you could risk, you know, making something that isn't as dark the darkest part of what your material can go to, and then you're kind of screwed for what the actual darkest areas, and it just becomes way too flat. You know, same with if you didn't put in the darkest areas, the other values might seem way too dark when you don't have that kind of comparative area to go on. Like, obviously her face, normally, you know, she is a Caucasian woman, you would think that her skin shading would be a lot lighter than it actually is in the photo. Which, again, another reason you want to maybe possibly put in the darkest areas first. I know for colored pencils I do this a lot. I put in the darkest areas and then I also put in the white areas, because you can't go darker than black and you can't go lighter than white. So when you put in those two extreme values, it helps you get in all of the varying midtones a lot easier. So yeah, I'm just kind of working away. You'll see me erase a ton in this, and that's kind of another tip or just like demonstration about how useful erasers will be in drawing. You know, lots of the areas I kind of, whether they got smudged just from my hand or I just kind of shaded over them a little too much with my pencil, I went in a lot and re-added the highlights using either my Tombow Mono eraser that you can kind of see laying on the side, or my kneaded eraser, and they were definitely saving me for this drawing. Another thing I was going to mention before, but I clearly went on some tangent about something else, but earlier in the video you saw me using my light pad pucks that I'm absolutely obsessed with. They are basically the most portable easel, because I realized that drawing flat was definitely skewing my facial proportions, other than just my apparent inability to accurately portray. This sketch was not helping that either. So that's kind of why you have this like strange angle. I did try and fix it with the later clips to try and angle the camera somewhat more dead on, but you know, you've got a pencil that's glaring off of the lights and everything else. So even this is a bit skewed for what you're seeing on camera to what I was seeing. But yeah, that is kind of, it's definitely on an angle in all of this footage. But yeah, I was just, like I mentioned, I really was not feeling it, so at this point I was just kind of getting it done, getting it all finished, and whatever. This microphone was the devil. I just kind of was not wanting to waste any more time on what I considered a mediocre drawing. Just, yeah, I'm really not used to doing, like, I haven't done black and white pencil rendering in so long. Normally I'm using colored pencils, and I would have been able to have rendered this a lot better, even if it was colored pencils in monochrome, just because I'm so used to having the white pencil crayon to kind of save my butt in certain situations. I think you will see it eventually, but the HB pencil eventually was just not erasing as well as I would have liked it, and the areas were just so small that the microphone just kind of got really muddy and messy, and I couldn't get the detail in it that I would have liked. Yeah, like going back to, I think I mentioned earlier that I realized quite early on that I probably should have drawn her a little larger, especially since I was trying for such photo accurate photorealism, it definitely would have helped out to render the super small details. But yeah, I would just decided to also do this simple black and white like shading background just so you could kind of see the edge of the hair, especially because the light was kind of bouncing off the edges. So definitely wanted to show that, you know, it was actually finished, but I didn't want to add unnecessary values to the edges of the hair. So yeah, just a simple gradient background to kind of show that. And yeah, at this point, like I mentioned, really wasn't feeling it, but I think it's important to show, you know, because normally artists just kind of show you their highlight reels, you know, the artwork that they are the most proud of sharing with the world, and not necessarily the kind of trials in between. So I'm happy to share this with you. Like I said, I don't hate it, but it definitely, in my mind, was going to go a lot better. But yeah, hopefully this kind of showed you or helped you or inspired you. You know, if you aren't having a great drawing day, like, don't worry, everyone has those, no matter how skilled or, you know, professional the artists that you look up to might seem. Everyone has not great drawing days where they're just not feeling what they're working on, or, you know, their arm is not cooperating like their mind thinks it should, and yada yada. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully it might have given you some tips or ideas about how to kind of shade and render in black and white photorealism. But yes, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.